Welcome to this video, maximizing LRP's potential for feeder cattle. USDA's Livestock Risk Protection program, often called LRP, has been around for a long time. But until USDA made some changes in the last 18 months, it hasn't been something most people were interested in. The changes they've made have made it much more affordable, much more flexible, and today you have a lot of people looking into LRP. Sadly, you can't find a lot of good information beyond a fact sheet, maybe a one-pager on the program. But we specialize in LRP at Ranchers Insurance, and the one thing we wanted to do different than all the other agents was to provide data that answers some of the most common questions. So what we utilize is a proprietary tool that pretends as if the changes, how the program operates now, the changes to subsidy and flexibility had been around since the program existed. And so we backcast and we look at hundreds of simulations to determine how LRP would have operated under today's rules. The goal isn't to tell you how LRP will operate in the future, but it does provide tremendous context and it does answer some simple questions when we look at how it would have operated in the past. And hopefully having an understanding of how it operates in the past gives you the ability to maximize its potential in the future. So this video is going to cover feeder cattle. I should point out there will be a separate video for fed cattle and there's a separate video for swine. And it's quite surprising. If you're interested in fed versus feeder, you need to watch both videos because the results are not the same at all. Swine also has some different results. So I think this video is going to be exciting if a video on livestock insurance can be exciting. So the first question that producers bring up, and they might ask it in different ways, but it's, should I be doing LRP? Is LRP a good deal? And to answer that question, what we're going to do is we're going to look at two scenarios. We're going to pretend that since this program had been around in 2007, somebody had consistently utilized the program. The first scenario I'm going to look at is about a 500-pound steer, insuring 30 weeks ahead, so just shy of 7 months, about 7 months. So often kind of a cow-calf type scenario. And then we're going to go to an 800-pound steer, insuring 21 weeks ahead. Basically just to do some simulations and to glean what we can from how LRP would have operated. Okay, so you can see some numbers on your screen here. This is for the 500-pound. What these numbers mean, the 50%, what these numbers tell us is that had one consistently utilized LRP in the past under this scenario, LRP would have provided an indemnity about 50% of the time. What that means is the price would have dropped below the level you insured 50% of the time. Under this scenario, I should point out, the insurance coverage is between 97.5% and 100%. So it's the highest level of coverage is what we're evaluating here. Next down, you'll notice that 40% of the time, the indemnity that was paid was enough to cover the entire premium. The cost was $24.30. The gross indemnity was $36.23, and the net indemnity was $11.93. So what it tells us is, and this is using well over 100 different simulations, if one had done LRP in the past using this scenario, it would have been a good deal. It would have taken out those valleys when the prices dropped, and when you take out those bad years, it raised the income overall. In fact, raised the income nearly $12 a head. Okay, let's do the same simulation again at a high coverage level. This time, modeling out a 21-week endorsement for an 800-pound steer. The numbers are similar. 48% of the time it provided an indemnity. 38% of the time that indemnity was enough to cover the premium. The cost per head goes a little higher, obviously, heavier weight, $29.51 per head. The gross indemnity, $44.51. The net is $15.02 per head. So again, higher pound, little different length of endorsement, but the results are positive. Basically answering the question, yeah, LRP historically would have been something that would have been a good deal for cattle producers based upon the current rules of how LRP operates. One of the first questions producers have when they start looking at the different options to purchase LRP is, should I buy the best coverage, the highest coverage, the most expensive coverage, Or should I go down just a little bit, perhaps take advantage of a little higher subsidy? Typically when LRP is available, it has about 10 options for every time frame, starting with the highest level going down the lowest. And the trade-offs are pretty easy. The highest, easy to understand. The highest costs the most and pays the most, usually. The lowest does the opposite, costs the least and pays the least. So this next one, let's look at an 800-pound steer. We already went through the numbers on the left there, where we have the highest coverage level. Now let's go down to a coverage level that gets us the next highest level of subsidy. The way LRP works is a tiered subsidy from 35% at the highest level of coverage down to 55%. And what we're showing here is 92.5 to 94.99, because that is the level that we get that 40% subsidy, the next highest level. And so let's just compare those. Now, using a lower coverage level, it pays 31% of the time compared to 48%. The indemnity covers a premium 24% compared to 38% of the time. The cost goes down significantly. It's $14 compared to $29. The gross indemnity, unfortunately, goes down a significant amount too. It's $19 now, used to be $44. And the net indemnity is only $5 compared to $15. So what you can see from this analysis is that historically speaking, one would have been better off at a higher level of coverage. Let's do the 500-pound. The 500-pound, I'm even going to add a lower level of coverage just to kind of show you how it would work. So we've already gone on the far left, the highest coverage level. In the middle, you can see kind of a middle coverage level, the one we just did, about 94.99 down to 92.5. But on the right, we're going to go 85% up to about 87.5% just to see how that would have worked. And you can go across those numbers and make sense of them, but obviously the frequency of payment goes down significantly from 40% of the circumstances where it would have paid the indemnity. The indemnity would have paid the premium down to 9%. The cost goes from $24 to $6 a head. The gross indemnity goes from 36 to 4. And what you can see though, the net indemnity actually goes negative. So had one been insuring at that level historically, it actually would have been a bad deal. They would not have come out ahead on that product. So while we can never know exactly what the future will bring with markets, etc., what we do know is at least historically, one would have been better off to insure at one of the higher coverage levels than going down and trying to save money. Another question that's often asked, and this is kind of intuitive, I think, is when I talk to a producer, they say, hey, I'm interested when the market hits X price. And oftentimes, unfortunately, it's probably right above where the market's going to get. But we wanted to test a theory that if the market is at certain levels, is it more or less likely to provide an indemnity? Does the results vary at all? And so what we did is we actually put a minimum threshold. We said, we're only going to insure when the market is a certain point. And to make this simple, we're going to evaluate the 800-pound steer again. And what you can see here, you can see these numbers. The ones on the left we've already looked at. That is, if it's we're insuring a 21-week endorsement, 800-pound at the highest coverage level. And we're going to do both of these at the exact same coverage level, so we're comparing apples to apples. The difference is, on the left, just says we buy all the time. Whenever those random events came up that our model utilizes, we would have purchased LRP. The one on the right says we're only purchasing LRP when the price for the feeder cattle price is above 150. And what you can see is the events that trigger an indemnity go from 48 to 62 when we only insure based upon, this is $150. So we only insure when it's above 150. Positive net indemnity goes from 38 to 51. The average cost per head went up a couple dollars from $29 to $31 per head, but the gross indemnity really goes up from $44 to $72, and that makes the net indemnity go from $15 to $41. So a significantly better result over time when one establishes a minimum threshold, but there's a trade-off too. And the trade-off is, if we only insure when the market's over 150, we might be missing out on years when it's just a little bit lower, but drops further. So the purpose of this isn't to tell you that you should apply a threshold, but it's simply to answer the question of, if you had applied it historically, what would the result have been? The other question that we often receive is, how far out should I purchase? You know, LRP allows you to purchase from 13 weeks up to 52 weeks, so just about a year ahead. And the question is, well, does it matter? Should you purchase, you know, just a few months ahead or a long ways ahead? And this really matters because nowadays you can insure unborn calves as well. So you could insure when the cow is pregnant, you know, months ahead. So the numbers are interesting. We wanted to evaluate this and put some real data down. Again, here we're going to use the 800-pound example, 21 weeks. We're at the highest coverage levels, so we're using apples for apples again. And what you can see here from left to right, from 13 weeks to 39 weeks, you can see the cost. The cost goes up. The further out you're insuring, as a general rule, the more it's going to cost. So from $23 up to $40. The average gross indemnity goes from $31 to $64. The average net indemnity from the shortest is $7.91 to $24.12. And you can just kind of look at that chart. We didn't go beyond 39, and I think you should take that with just, this is a little bit of a grain of salt. The issue is this. One of the major improvements to LRP is there are far more opportunities to purchase it, you know, 30 plus weeks out. It used to be that you had pretty good coverage options 6 months out, but you really couldn't go much beyond that. Now you can go, you know, darn near a year out very often. And because of that, when you start running these samples in this analysis, there just aren't a lot of purchase events to evaluate. And so we get out even the 39 weeks, you're starting to see less events that you're looking at, which means perhaps that you just have to take that into account, and that was why we only went out to 39. So the short answer is, does it matter how far out you insure? Maybe a little bit. Historically, it did matter a little bit. I'm not sure that would change how I insure moving forward. You know, what I would be more focused on as a rancher is, when am I marketing my livestock, and I want my LRP endorsement to align with that, rather than just trying to figure out if one period of time performed better than the other. And you can see the graph down at the bottom that kind of shows that. In addition here, I'm also going to show you one graph that just also looks at coverage levels, something we talked about a few minutes ago, that perhaps puts in a graph what we talked about as far as the coverage levels that you can purchase. So you might find these interesting, but you want to know something about how this applies to your operation. You might have some other questions. The reality is the proprietary tool we have can run many simulations, many different questions can be answered. So give us a call. Let us help you try to maximize LRP for you. Let us answer the questions that you have so that when you do use LRP, you have the best chance of success. If you like this video, please subscribe. If you have questions, call us. You can write a comment here or email us. We'd like to help you. We have a good team of experts that know LRP inside and out. Thanks for taking time to watch this video.